Welcome to Daily English Stories. Every story hides a world. Some inspire, some haunt, some stay forever. Chapter 1. The Weight of the World. It started like any other morning, but something felt heavier. The alarm clock rang. Too early, too loud. She pressed snooze 3 times before dragging herself out of bed. The air felt cold. The floor colder. Her favorite hoodie wasn't where she thought she'd left it. And that tiny thing, so small, so ordinary, was enough to make her sigh like the whole world was sitting on her shoulders. She skipped breakfast. Again. Not because there was no food, but because she had no appetite, no energy to explain why she wasn't okay. Her mother asked if everything was all right. She nodded, forcing a smile that barely reached her eyes. That same smile she wore every day. Then the bus drove past her, again. She waved, ran, called out, but it didn't stop. She stood there, chest heaving, the cold biting into her hands, feeling like the universe itself was trying to push her back. At school, it was worse. A test she had studied for all night came back with a red F scribbled at the top. She stared at the paper, the letters blurring behind her tears. The teacher's voice faded into background noise. Her friends talked and laughed around her, but the jokes didn't reach her ears. They talked about weekend plans, funny videos, silly drama. And she just sat there, smiling again, nodding, pretending to care, pretending to be okay. At lunch, she sat in her usual spot, but the table felt more crowded and lonelier at the same time. Someone spilled juice near her backpack. Someone else borrowed her pen and forgot to return it. Tiny things again. But they added up like quiet raindrops that become a flood. And when she finally got home, hoping for a bit of quiet, it wasn't there. Her parents were arguing. The TV was too loud, the walls too thin. And in her room, the only place she could breathe, her younger brother had spilled something on her sketchbook. The one she poured her thoughts into when words didn't work. She didn't yell, didn't cry, just picked it up page by page, trying to salvage what she could. But inside, something cracked. She lay on her bed later, staring at the ceiling, not thinking, just feeling tired. Tired of trying, tired of pretending, tired of waking up just to survive another day. She scrolled through her phone, watched others smile through pictures, laugh in videos, live lives that seemed easier, better, happier. She wanted to scream, "Can't you see I'm drowning here?" But no one could hear, no one could see. And in that moment, wrapped in silence and the hum of a ceiling fan, she whispered to herself the words no one else had said. It's okay not to be okay. Because even though no one had noticed, even though the weight of the world pressed down on her shoulders, she was still standing, still breathing, still here, and maybe, just maybe, that counted for something. Chapter 2. Cracks of light. The rain had stopped, but the sky still wore its heavy gray coat. The world outside was damp, quiet, like it too was holding its breath. Our main character sat on a worn park bench, the kind where chipped paint and rusted screws spoke of years gone by. Their school bag lay slouched beside them, like it too had given up. Everything felt dull, inside and out. They didn't know why they'd ended up here. They just couldn't go home yet. Not after another failed test. Not after another argument over dinner last night. Not after waking up this morning and wondering, what's the point? The weight on their chest wasn't new. But it felt heavier these days, as if the world had quietly pressed all its problems into their ribs while they slept. A leaf floated down from a nearby tree and landed in their lap, golden brown, curled at the edges, but still beautiful. They stared at it. So simple, so quiet. For a brief moment, it felt like the world had offered them something without expecting anything in return. That was when the old woman arrived. She sat at the far end of the bench, not saying a word, just humming a tune, low and gentle like something from a lullaby. It wasn't directed at anyone, but it filled the silence between them, not awkwardly, but kindly, like warmth placed beside someone who's cold, not forced into their arms. A few moments passed. "Rough day?" she asked without looking over. They didn't respond at first, but the question didn't press for an answer. It just stayed there. "Yeah," they finally whispered. She nodded as if she already knew. "You know," the woman said softly, "bad days don't mean a bad life. I used to think that. When my husband died and I lost my job the same year, I thought the world had stopped caring, but it hadn't. I just stopped noticing." They looked at her, really looked. Her face held lines not just of age, but of stories, the kind only time and pain and resilience could carve. "How did you get through it?" they asked. She smiled faintly. "By remembering that even the darkest clouds let a little light through, if you're willing to look up." The next day at school, something strange happened. Someone dropped their books in the hallway, and our main character bent down to help. The person looked surprised, then smiled. "Thanks," they said. A small thing, maybe nothing. But something about that smile, it stuck. Later in class, they noticed another student sitting quietly, hands clenched in their lap, eyes red. Without thinking, they passed a note. "You okay?" The response came a few minutes later. "Not really, but thanks for asking." For the first time in weeks, something shifted inside. Not everything was better, not yet. The weight was still there, but it felt shared now, like someone had reached under it and lifted a corner, and that made all the difference. Chapter 3. Stronger than before. Time moved, as it always does. The days still held their share of struggle, but something had changed, something deep within. There was no sudden miracle, no perfect morning where the sun seemed to solve everything. But there was understanding, a quiet, powerful understanding that even bad days could be faced. The main character, still young, still sometimes tired, began to build small rituals of care, a warm cup of tea in the morning, a walk beneath trees after school, writing thoughts in a notebook even when the pages stayed messy. These weren't grand acts of transformation, but they were enough. Enough to say, "I'm trying." They learned that it was okay to ask for help. At first, their voice trembled when they spoke up. They weren't used to saying, "I'm not okay." But when they finally did, when they told a friend or a counselor or even a kind teacher, something unexpected happened. The world didn't fall apart. It opened up. People listened. Some shared their own stories. Some offered advice. Others simply stayed beside them in silence. That silence was not empty. It was safe. It said, "You're not alone." The days still came. Some good, some heavy. But now, the character had tools. Not weapons to fight the world, but shields to guard their heart. A song that made them feel seen. A pet who nuzzled close when words were too hard. A small sticky note on the mirror that read, "You've made it through before. You'll do it again." And then one afternoon, someone else sat beside them on a school bench. Someone quiet, shoulders low, eyes rimmed with red. The character didn't hesitate. They didn't say something rehearsed. They just sat close and said, "Hey, I've had days like that too." That was enough. It was everything. Because now they knew. Healing didn't mean being perfect. It meant feeling the pain, walking through it, and finding your way anyway. Strength wasn't loud. It wasn't always a bright smile or a motivational speech. Sometimes it was brushing your teeth even when everything felt pointless. Sometimes it was choosing to wake up again. The story didn't end with fireworks. It ended with something softer. A quiet bedroom, a lamp glowing gently, a journal half filled with thoughts, and a heart that no longer carried everything alone. The bad days hadn't disappeared, but they had changed. Because now, someone had learned how to survive them and how to help others do the same. And that mattered. That was everything.